Righto, Campbell's comments, getting out and about, thanks to my sponsors, both Nutrien and Barastoc, and Scared the Horse. Briahna Larkins, hello again.
Hi, how are you?
Very, very good. We were going to do a follow-up on how this bloke was progressing, and that we're probably going to, by this time, have 2 or 3 of those done, but that hasn't happened, has it?
No, thanks to COVID. Has everything else been put off?
It has indeed, and actually, and we've got to be fair to COVID. At one stage, it was also the weather. I think the weather turned very wet and ugly when we were going to go do a bit of a follow-up on where he was with his training. Firstly, how's he going now? We've been roughly 9 months, maybe a little bit less since we've done the interview, but how's he been progressing and how's he going along?
Yep, he's going really well. Has taken to everything I've trained him in. He's just so easygoing, super trainable, and yeah, he's loving his work. So
he's a standardbred. He never raced, but he was broken in, so predominantly probably pretty slow, or people didn't want to pay up for him?
Yep. Absolutely, I think he's pretty slow.
Yeah.
He has no inkling to go fast. I've sort of tried to burst him along a few times and it's just not for him.
And there's lots getting done now with the retraining and all the rest, but one of the stereotypes, I suppose, with standardbreds, and one of the things I'm trying to break down a lot for, in fairness, all off-the-track horses, but yep, predominantly the standardbreds, they're not just trail riding horses or your slow pony club horses. They've got so many more gifts that they can give, and that's one of the things that when you and I started speaking and you were saying what you're doing with this horse, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do, promote what you're doing,
yep,
but also promote what the standardbred can do.
Absolutely. So a lot of people I found when I was getting into it, they were either just trail riding horses because they're nice and quiet, or they were going into English, and I really wanted to promote them in a Western discipline. You can train them to do anything. If you put the time and effort in, I think you can train them to do virtually anything.
With Nutrien, and they're one of my sponsors at the minute, they're doing a rehoming camp draft sale. Now, if anyone hasn't watched it, go to the Nutrien website and you'll be able to follow along with it. It's drawing to a conclusion in about 2 weeks, actually, or just less than 2 weeks. I think it goes up. They go up for auction. But basically, they've got 6 of the best trainers to retrain 6 standardbreds, varying from one like yours that did never race, never made the racetrack at all, to a horse that I think had won 25, competed in our best races going along. So they've really changed it up. Yep. And they're going into drafting, and the momentum that's created is terrific. You have done similar, but you're actually on to cutting. So for some of the people that are watching this and they go, everyone knows what cutting is. What is cutting? Because I can tell you now, I'm not everyone.
So cutting is basically, it's all on trainability and moving a beast around. So you have to go into a mob of cattle, pick one out and hold it back away from the mob. So naturally the cow wants to go back to its mob and you have to keep it out. And it gets scored on movement, the horse's ability to hold the cow out, watch the cow. If they miss a movement, things like that, you get graded down. So
I'm going to get into trouble here because I'll say it wrong, but drafting is basically they do that in a very small yard, and then they go and put them around gates?
Yes, so they will run them in a pattern. So you'll have to turn the beast left, turn the beast right, do things like that. Where cutting, you're just holding it.
Holding it.
It is just the part in the yard in camp drafting where they just hold the beast for a little while until they let them out. That is the whole idea of cutting the whole time. But you also want the beast to be moving quite a lot. If the beast just comes out and stands still, then your job's not really done. So you'll go and pick another one.
Oh, so you don't get marked well on that?
No.
Yeah, so I'd be no good at it because that's what I'd be looking for, the one that's nice and quiet.
Stand still.
How has he adapted to the cows?
He's been fine. He doesn't mind them at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the bit of the feedbacks I've got from the other discipline as well. They
just don't mind. Yeah. Like I've started a few young quarter horses and initially they're either petrified of them or want to take to them. Where I found these guys, they just take it as it is. You ask them to do it and they'll go to work.
So the training, it's a new discipline for yourself as well. Yep. So it's a unique little journey that the pair of yous have gone on. You started it, you weren't green, I wouldn't say, he definitely was. You'd done a little bit of it, you said, with quarter horses and all the rest, but you decided you're going to embark on it and to showcase, one, what a standie can do, because you have a love for them, but also show what you can do and get yourself into a different discipline.
Absolutely.
How have you found it?
Very interesting. I'm very out of my depth, but I've really enjoyed it.
You have?
Yep.
You've gone and got some clinics, and I don't mind wrapping sponsors up and all the rest. Double Dan Horsemanship, and hopefully I'm going to be able to catch up with those guys at some stage as well. Yep. But that was one of the turning points for you. You went to one of their clinics a year and a half ago or more?
Yeah. About a year ago.
And I remember because when you came back, you were very yabba about it. You were very excited about it. But you've been back to a couple since, at least one more since, and that's what sort of spurred this on.
Yep, so I really enjoyed it, and it just showed a whole different life. I've never really been introduced to that. I've never gone to a clinic, and they showed me what else you can really do with them. And I really love working the beast. I didn't really take to camp drafting. I didn't really get into the running flat out and trying to move them around, but I really like that, training those small manoeuvres to get in that yard and really be able to tell the horse where you want it to put its feet. I really enjoyed that, so he was a bit of a challenge, and he's been a bit of fun. So
to take that back to your other riding disciplines, and it's stupid, it's so funny as it's going to be, showing Shetlands, like it's a big contrast in the difference. Not that there's anything wrong with showing Shetlands or the like, but it's just a very, I suppose, different step that you've taken.
Yep.
Has learning cutting helped you go with the showing, and showing helped you a little bit with the cutting as well?
Yes, so definitely starting in English helped me a lot with the Western disciplines. I found the things that we trained in English, collection, being able to get the horse to hold its body properly, helped with the cutting manoeuvres. The horses didn't find them as difficult, but I've actually started using some of the cutting stuff on my Shetland, teaching him to turn on the haunches and things like that, and I found he uses his body better as well. So I think there's definitely positives to both sides, and being able to do both sides. Not just going in one direction and not being open to learning something else. I
think that's one of the things, and you're going to, in a minute, I'm going to put a helmet cam on you and going to mic you up, and you're going to go through a little bit of your training and your routine. Plus, you've had some feedback from our previous interview, and you're going to answer some of those questions. As you go out there and ride and just sort of showcase, which I think is good, and it's something that I like to do. I like to do different. But it is one of those things, I think sometimes you don't realise, like I've got a 15-year-old daughter, Holly, and she show jumps, and you think, oh, all we've got to do is point them at jumps, teach them how to go over the jumps and all the rest. You've got to learn flying changes, you've got to learn leg yields and all the rest. Took her the other weekend just to tune it, and she was fortunate enough to be able to get on the back of a horse, and she's like, wow, and just to sit there and watch these guys and how they, and she can learn so much from it. I think it's one of the things, and this is what my equestrian page is all about. It's an equestrian page, it's not a drafting page, it's not a cutting page, it's not a showing, it's everything. And I think people should open their eyes up and really appreciate horses and try and find it different. Yeah,
absolutely. Try something different. Like if you see something and you think, wow, I'd love to give that a go, try and find somewhere to go and have a go. Yeah. Absolutely. I've learnt so much this year particularly, and last year, going in and going, I'm going to try something. And yeah, the things I've learnt, the things my horses have learnt. You're always learning and you get the most out of your horses.
Go back 4 years, would you have been thinking you were going to do cutting or drafting or something like that?
No.
No.
I was either English, showing or barrel racing.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to do.
Which in itself is a big difference in that.
Yeah.
That's for sure. With the barrel racing, has some of the tricks you've learnt from cutting helped with that? Or?
Yes, so I'm currently training one of my young ones, and just being able to do those turns, so when the beast moves and you're rolling back with them, has definitely helped him engage his hindquarters so much more. So when you hit the drum and you want to turn, he just sits, because I've trained that now, whereas I never would have been able to train that had I not gone to the clinic and opened my eyes to how to train it, because I'd never learnt. I was English. Yep. Never knew how, so my horses just didn't reap those benefits.
Yeah, all right, that's key. Right, we're going to put a helmet cam on you and mic you up, and you're going to go through it. We may come back and do an ending to it, we may not. We'll just see how you might sign off and all the rest. But we encourage people to fire some questions, and within the next week to 10 days, I reckon we'll come back maybe and just have another chat, one about where he's progressing and how he is going, but then also hopefully answer some of the questions that people might have from it as well, if you're happy to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it'll be a bit of fun. Right up. We'll mic you up, have a bit of fun. Whether we come back or not, who knows? But if not, thank you very much for giving me your time, and well done to you.
Fabulous. Thank you for having me. Alright, so to all those who watched our first video of retraining Freddie here from harness under saddle, had a few questions on little bits and training tips that they could use while retraining their own standardbred. One of the major ones I get asked is how to encourage a lower head carriage. Freddie here is doing it a bit automatically now because I've given him a fair bit of training. He's spent the last 6 months in training. But initially he used to do exactly the same thing, go with his head up. He wouldn't activate his back or rump muscles, so we found it really hard to work in a frame and actually carry himself. So here, if you can see my hands there, when his head comes up, I just give a little left-right wriggle and see him drop his head there, and then I release. So the release is the really, really, really important part. If you don't release the pressure when he does it, he's not going to want to offer that to you again. So as soon as I give that little wriggle and he drops his head, I let him go. If his head comes back up, little wriggle again, head down. And now he wants to keep it down because he understands that that's where the release of pressure is. Another big thing we had was flexion. People had trouble. Naturally, standardbreds are taught in harness to go straight and keep a very, very, very straight posture. And naturally, when we're riding them, we want a really bendy posture. So when we're going left, we want them to really bend to the left. And when we're going right, we want them to really bend to the right. So in order to train this, as you're going along, I just lift my inside rein here and get him to bend his neck and his head around. Just there, he's doing it, let him go. And again, lift, he's doing it, let him straighten. And on the right side, lift the right rein, he's bending, let him straighten. And this has all got to be done at the walk first, because there's no point if we can't walk, then we can't progress into a trot and a canter and expect them to get it. So they have to really understand those cues at the walk first. Probably one of the other major things I got asked is they can be very hard in the head. In harness, they're designed to really lay on that forehand. So they can pull really, really hard. Practice lots and lots of transitions. So we done lots of halt, and if he didn't quite halt properly, just ask for a few steps back and then ask him to move forward. Same thing again, halt. So there he was much quicker. We let him rest and then we ask forward. And that just means he's listening to me. He's not worried about what everyone else is doing, and he's getting really, really soft to those big cues. They naturally can start out much, much harder. So when you stop, if they're really pulling against you, do a few extra steps pulling back, just to get them to back off the pressure, and then move them forward. So the same thing here again, his head's just come up a little bit. I'm just going to give a little wriggle and his head's gone back down. So we're going to move into trot now, and we're going to do the exact same thing. So I'm going to ask him to trot on. And the same thing, make sure he's listening. We're going to come back to walk. He's done that really well. Let him rest and ask for trot again. So the same thing here, we're going to ask for a bit of flexion. So I'm going to lift this left rein down here and we're going to bring him around. So there, he's getting that real bend and we release. And again, ask for that bend, and now see there, he's wanting to maintain it for me. So I'm just leaving him alone. That's another really important part. When they're doing what you really want, then leave them alone. And we're going to come back to walk because that was really, really good, and pat. I'm just going to lift my GoPro here, it's a bit heavy on my helmet. When you're training the standardbreds, we are training them for a whole different lifestyle than what they're used to. So I keep my training sessions initially to 20 to 30 minutes maximum, and don't overdo it. If they're giving you a little bit of what you want and having a really good try, then don't keep asking the same thing over and over and over, because they're going to get sick of it and then they're not going to want to try for you. So we're just going to turn him around here. Lift the inside rein here, let him follow around and come back this way. So to get those really, really, really supple turns like he just done there, I lift with my inside rein here, whichever way you're going, left or right. I'm going to lift with my right rein, and when he turns there, see, I let that rein go. Turn, let it go, turn, let it go, turn, let it go. And see there, he's wanting to follow it round for much longer than the first time, and there he's just going to keep turning, because that is where his release of pressure is. So when he feels that rein go loose, he's like, oh, I really like that. He's just kicking out the flies there. He really likes that, so then he offers it to me a lot more, because he's like, oh, you've got no pressure on me. That feels really enjoyable. So we're going to move him back into trot to the right, and already he's offering me flexion because he does understand it already. But if they're not, that's fine. Let them go straight and then just pick up the inside rein there. Good boy. And bring him around. Let him go straight for a little bit, pick up the inside rein and let him come around there. Nice. And then we're going to bring him back to walk. So there, his walk transition was a bit slow and he's just being a little bit hard. So I'm just going to back him up and now ask him to move on. And now we're going to go back into trot and do it again. So little things like that. Don't lose your cool. It's totally normal when they're learning to do these little things. So we're going to ask again. He was much quicker on at that time, so we're just going to let him walk. I'm just going to lift my GoPro up, it's weighing my helmet down again, and trot on. Good boy. It's much nicer, and he's just bending to the outside, so we're going to lift the inside and just let him go. As soon as he offers that little bit, let the pressure go. And then we're going to, there we go. He was so onto it that time I didn't even ask. He felt me get ready for the walk transition and he offered it. So this time we're going to let him walk a little bit longer. Now this is really, really important when preparing for the canter. So canter for a standardbred requires a lot of hind end impulsion, or for any horse, but it's much harder for a standardbred because they're so hard on the forehand. So what we're going to do here is practicing our collection is going to get him using his back muscles and his rump muscles so that when we do want canter, he's all over it and he can use those muscles properly. The same thing when you're first teaching them, a few strides is plenty. Don't overdo it because you've got it. You sort of want to keep going, but just let them do a few strides and then reward. So just here he's bending to the outside. There we go. I'm just going to correct that. So we're going to ask for canter, but the key is that lower head carriage. So like we were practicing earlier, I just give those little wriggle on the reins and get him to bring his head down. Now, as soon as their head comes up, they hollow out their back because when their head's up, they can't then bend their back muscles. So as his head comes up, his back muscles hollow out. So when his head goes down, he actually lifts his back and he's picking me up under the saddle. The same thing, his hind quarter will come in much, much further underneath him and he's able to hold a canter which comes from the hind quarter. So we're going to ask him to pop into trot here. Trot on, good boy. And don't be afraid to use those cues, those verbal cues when they're learning, because on a young horse, a verbal cue can be just as good if they don't understand your body language fully, so your leg commands or your hands. So we're just going to bend him to the inside here, and I'm going to sit and ask for canter. So just there he's keeping a low head carriage and he's picking me up really nicely, really balanced. A really nice canter. So we're going to let him come back now. He does know how to do a sliding halt, so if you do get one of those in this video, I do apologise. He can sometimes go stop instead of trot. And we're just going to ask again. Nice. So he's getting those really neat transitions because his head's nice and low and he's really using his hind quarter. So we're just going to ask for halt here. When we get up the top, it is going to be a big halt. So you ready for it? Ooh, good boy. That's one of our little training things that we're using for cutting at the moment. Naturally, they need to be able to have a big stop and a quick spin around before, obviously, when the beast moves really quickly. So we're just going to ask the turnaround here. And every time, it doesn't matter if you're not really schooling them. There we go, good boy. Every time you ask for those turns, then you really want to practice what your commands want to be in the future. So if you just want a light lift to turn, you practice that every time you ask them to turn. It doesn't matter if you're out on a trail ride or whatever you're doing. If you want to turn, you ask those same commands so that they become a habit and the horse just learns to expect it. So same thing here. Wait for a nice low head carriage. He's got a beautiful low head carriage there. And we're going to sit and ask for canter. And same thing there, because his head was nice and low, he brought his bum under really well and he's able to hold that really, really nice canter. So if their head comes up, you just want to try the wriggle again and see if they'll bring it down a little bit for you. If they do, let them go 2 or 3 strides and bring them back to trot. Trot on, trot on. Good boy. He just wanted to do a halt there. Yeah, so if their head comes up, naturally they're going to want to hollow out the back. So just try and wriggle their head back down. If they offer even the tiniest little bit of head down, then reward them at that and let them stop. so that they fully understand that that's exactly what you want. You want that low head carriage. So same thing here, we're just going to ask him to move on. Nice low head carriage and pop into canter. And here, if you're able to, just try and help them with the canter. Sorry for the wind and the microphone there. Just try and drive your bum from the back of the saddle through to the front. That encourages those back legs to come underneath him. So if his back legs start getting really wide out the back like they do when they're in harness, he's then not going to be able to hold the canter. And here we're just going to ask for halt. And he beats me to it every time. Good boy. And the same thing when you're practicing the rein back. Ask a little bit, and as soon as he gives you a little bit, you release the pressure. Ask a little bit, release the pressure. Ask a little bit, release the pressure. Good boy. And then naturally reward them as much as possible. Just to finish off with, I will walk on. Good boy. Show you a little bit of what he's learning to learn his rollbacks. So a rollback is where you're sort of cantering along. Beast stops and turns really quickly. Your horse needs to be able to stop on his hind end and whip round really fast. So we're just teaching him a spin here, which is a turn on the hind quarter, in order to be able to then mimic a beast movements when we get to that stage. So here I'm just going to ask him to halt, give him direction, so this right rein, and ask him to step over with his front end. So when you're first starting it, he has done a bit of it, but when you're first starting it, one step like here, he's just moved his bum there instead. There we go, front end, let him rest. Don't ask too much too quickly, and then eventually ask for the front end. Ask for the front end, he'll just keep going. Beautiful, whoa, good boy. And the same thing, we'll ask back the other way. So we're just going to ask for the front end. He's given it to me, let him rest. Ask for the front end. He's given it to me, let him rest. And then we're going to ask for a bit more, bit more, bit more, bit more. Good. And that's plenty. So if you have any other questions, any other things you really want to see, really want the answer to, that you see him doing that you can't get your standardbred doing or really want to get your standardbred doing, he used to pace everywhere. Not for 1 minute was he ever a trotter, and he actually couldn't even trot when I got him. So we have worked on all those horrible pacing things. And yeah, so I'd be more than willing to help you out. If there's something that you see here that you'd really like to try or really want to be able to do, then you're more than welcome to ask away on our page. Thanks everyone.